Hi, my name is Samantha. I'm 27 years old, and I've always loved celebrating my birthday with family. But this year, nothing could have prepared me for the chaos that unfolded. I want to ask you all right at the start, where are you watching this from? Drop your city in the comments below, and also tell me how you would have reacted if this happened to you. It all started on a sunny Saturday afternoon. I had planned my birthday dinner months in advance, picking out a dress that I absolutely adored. It was a shimmering blue cocktail dress, carefully tailored, hugging all the right places, and paired with the perfect heels that matched my outfit. I had invited my closest friends and my family, including my sister and her daughter, Emily. I never imagined that what should have been a warm, happy celebration would turn into a moment I'd never forget. As the guests arrived, laughter and chatter filled the air, and I felt genuinely happy, thinking this was going to be one of my best birthdays yet. But then, Emily walked in, holding a bright red cup in her small hands, smiling innocently, or so I thought. She was 7, mischievous, and as my sister greeted everyone, I was trying to capture a perfect photo in front of the birthday backdrop. That's when it happened. Emily, standing beside the table, suddenly tossed her drink, an entire glass of orange soda, right on the front of my dress. The liquid soaked through instantly, leaving large stains that spread across the silky fabric like a painting gone wrong. My heart sank, and for a moment, I froze, unsure if I should laugh, scream, or cry. And then, in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear, she said, "Now you look as cheap." My entire face flushed red, a mixture of shock and humiliation washing over me. I glanced around to see the expressions of my friends and family, and the room fell silent. I wanted to melt into the floor, to disappear, but something inside me shifted. I knew I couldn't let this moment define my birthday, but I also couldn't ignore it. The silence was suffocating, my sister looked mortified, and I felt the first real sting of anger. Little did I know, this incident would set off a chain of events that would teach everyone a lesson they'd never forget. After the initial shock, I took a deep breath, trying to compose myself. My dress was ruined, the bright orange stains spreading like wildfire over the fabric, and the sticky liquid clung to the material in a way that made it impossible to ignore. Emily was standing there, innocently smiling, completely unaware of the magnitude of what she had just done, while my sister was frantically whispering apologies, her face a mix of embarrassment and panic. My friends were trying to hold back their laughter, some of them exchanging glances, unsure if they should intervene or let the situation play out. But I could feel the anger bubbling inside me, a quiet, controlled rage that I knew would not let me sit quietly through this humiliation. I excused myself from the room for a moment, needing space to think, my heels clicking against the hardwood floor as I walked to the bathroom. I stared at my reflection in the mirror, my once perfect hair slightly damp from a stray splash of soda, my face flushed from a combination of embarrassment and simmering fury. And then, an idea formed, a tiny spark of revenge flickering in my mind. I realized this wasn't just about the dress, or the drink, or Emily's cruel words. It was about asserting myself, showing that I would not be made to feel cheap or small, especially not on my birthday. When I returned to the party, I pretended nothing had happened, smiling warmly at my guests, while inside, I was plotting. I set my phone down on the table and sent a quick text to one of my closest friends, someone who always understood my plans for subtle revenge. She winked at me, and I knew she understood exactly what I was thinking. Over the next hour, I played the perfect hostess, engaging in conversation, laughing at jokes, and keeping up appearances, while slowly guiding Emily into situations where her behavior could not go unnoticed. It was a delicate balance. On the surface, I remained calm and graceful, but beneath that exterior, I was orchestrating a sequence of small but unforgettable consequences. By the time dinner was served, I had already set the first pieces of my plan into motion. The food was delicious, the room filled with laughter, yet Emily's smug expressions and occasional giggles kept reminding me that my plan was necessary. I had to teach her that throwing drinks and calling someone cheap was not something that went unanswered. And as the evening progressed, I realized that revenge doesn't always have to be loud or dramatic. It can be quiet, precise, and leave a lasting impression, one that even a 7-year-old would remember for a very long time. And that's exactly what I was about to do. I came back into the room with a smile that felt like armor and a plan that felt like justice, but not the kind that burns bridges, the kind that opens eyes. Instead of lashing out at Emily, I decided to aim my response where it actually mattered, at the adults who allowed cruelty to slide and at my sister, who'd let her child dart hurt like arrows. I signaled to my friend who'd been in on my little text. She gave me a tiny nod and went to the corner where she filmed small, candid clips all evening for memories. I made sure the conversation around the table steered to kindness and manners. I told one of my funniest, warmest stories about how a small act of kindness once turned my worst day around. People laughed and relaxed, and the mood softened in that way it does when the room leans in. Then, slowly, as if I were revealing a painting in reverse, I brought the attention to the party games I'd arranged earlier. There was to be a silly birthday runway for the kids, a little charity jar for people to put notes of appreciation into, and a small compliment circle where everyone had to say one thing they admired about the guest of honor. I watched faces as they registered the idea. At first, a few rolled their eyes, thinking it childish, but then people started to warm to it. I called Emily forward with the most genuine smile I could muster and handed her a tiny microphone, the kind that records voices for home videos, and told her she could tell me what she liked about my dress now that everything was a little messy. She looked surprised, then shy, and mumbled something about it being sparkly. I cradled that moment, made it safe, and then, as the kids clamored for applause, I asked my sister to read one note from the compliment jar aloud. She reached in, rustled the paper, and with that casual flick of her wrist, she read a note I knew would land. To Sam, you always make our days brighter, even when things go wrong. The room smiled, and there was warmth, but I could see in my sister's face a flicker of something else, guilt, annoyance, the knowledge that she had failed to teach Emily compassion. That's when my friend, who had been filming on the pretense of party memories, casually set the phone to playback and hit the small montage we'd compiled. Clips of the party from the afternoon, the candid shots, the moments people didn't notice. Shots of Emily being handed a napkin and flicking it away, the moment she whispered to a friend behind her mother's back, the glass arc as she flung the drink, and my stunned face when orange soda bloomed across my chest. The audio was on, and the little microphone picked up more than people realized. Snatches of comments, the nervous laughter, and then the voice I had been hearing all evening, my sister's low apology, and then, later, the sizzling defensiveness as she tried to laugh it off. The montage played like a mirror. The room went very still. I had not wanted to humiliate my niece. I had wanted to show the pattern, the way little cruelties are tolerated and, when left unchecked, become attitudes. So I walked up to Emily, crouched to her level, and with all the gentleness I could muster, I asked her to help me. "Will you help Aunt Sam clean this up?" I said, handing her a napkin and smiling as if this was the most natural game. Her face crumpled a little. Children are quick to feel when attention shifts to what matters. She started wiping, hands clumsy and sticky, and my sister's face changed then in a way that shredded me with equal parts sorrow and relief. She finally looked like a parent seeing the consequence of an action. I didn't shout, didn't make a scene. I let the silence do the work. Later, when people whispered, my sister pulled me aside and apologized in a voice that trembled between shame and genuine remorse. "I'm so sorry, Sam," she said, eyes wet. I should have stopped her. "I'm sorry I let her say that." That apology was not the end of the story, but it was the pivot I wanted. I had taught Emily a small lesson about responsibility and compassion and made my sister answer for the environment she created. But I'd also revealed to everyone that my value was not set by a spill or a child's cruel words. The party resumed with a different tone, softer, more cautious, more human. People came to me with offers to help clean, with hugs, and with the kind of small confessions that break the habit of judgment. An aunt who admitted she'd once been mocked for her clothes, a friend who said she'd felt judged for a haircut. The flood of small truths made the birthday feel like the start of something honest. I finished my drink, now replaced with something warm, and felt the stare shift from accusation to understanding. The moment had passed from humiliation to lesson, and I realized the most powerful revenge wasn't to shame a child. It was to teach, to correct, and to make sure the people who raised that child learned too. By the time the cake came out, the mood had transformed entirely, and I could feel the shift in energy around me. It was no longer about Emily's childish stunt or the way my sister had failed to intervene. It had become a moment of reflection and connection. I decided to use the cake cutting as an opportunity to reinforce the lesson I wanted everyone to take away. I invited Emily to help me with the first slice, and while her hands shook a little, she complied. I thanked her for her help and made sure to compliment her sincerely, emphasizing the importance of responsibility and small acts of kindness. The adults in the room seemed to take notice. They were beginning to understand that nurturing empathy and accountability in children was not optional but essential. Later, when it was my turn to blow out the candles, I made a silent wish. Not for revenge, not for vindication, but for patience, wisdom, and the ability to handle moments like these with grace. People started sharing stories of their own childhood mishaps and moments when they had learned lessons the hard way. These stories created a bridge between generations, softening tensions and reminding everyone that learning and growth were continuous processes. I watched Emily's expression change subtly. The defiance in her eyes softened, replaced by curiosity and a hint of remorse. My sister, too, was quieter now, reflecting on her role and the need to guide her daughter better. The day continued with laughter, games, and a sense of warmth that I hadn't anticipated. The small act of including Emily in cleaning up and publicly addressing the behavior without shaming her had transformed the entire dynamic. I realized that true power wasn't in confrontation or punishment, but in demonstrating patience, empathy, and leadership. That day, I didn't just survive a humiliating moment. I turned it into a transformative experience for everyone present. The rest of the guests noticed the subtle but significant change in the atmosphere, and compliments about my handling of the situation started pouring in. By the time the party was winding down, I felt an immense sense of satisfaction, not because I had gotten back at anyone, but because I had managed to turn a moment of potential humiliation into one of teaching, learning, and human connection. I knew this day would linger in people's memories, not for the incident itself, but for how gracefully it had been handled. It was a lesson in dignity, empathy, and the quiet power of choosing the right response in moments of emotional turbulence. The satisfaction I felt was deeper than any fleeting sense of revenge. It was the kind of fulfillment that comes from knowing you acted with integrity and intelligence, shaping not just the immediate moment, but potentially influencing behavior in the future. As the evening drew to a close, I found a quiet moment to reflect on the events of the day. Sitting in the living room with a cup of tea, I thought about how a single incident, Emily's careless act, had revealed so much about human behavior, family dynamics, and personal growth. I realized that in moments of conflict or embarrassment, people often react instinctively, letting anger or shame dictate their actions. But there was a far more powerful option: responding with thoughtfulness and composure. I replayed the day in my mind, from the initial shock and humiliation to the subtle ways I had managed to shift the energy in the room, and a sense of calm pride washed over me. This wasn't about proving superiority or teaching anyone a lesson in a vengeful way. It was about showing that patience, understanding, and a gentle but firm approach could transform even the most tense situations. Emily's behavior had been corrected not through scolding or ridicule but through inclusion and guidance, and I knew she had learned something that would stay with her long after the party ended. My sister came over quietly, her expression a mix of remorse and gratitude. She whispered that she hadn't realized how much influence her own reactions could have on Emily, and she promised to be more mindful in the future. That acknowledgement felt like a victory in itself, because change often begins with awareness. I also thought about the other guests, some of whom had initially reacted with judgment or amusement, and I realized that my handling of the situation had subtly challenged their perspectives, encouraging them to reconsider how they might respond in similar circumstances. I felt a deep sense of satisfaction not from a desire for revenge or validation, but from understanding the impact of measured, conscious actions. Walking through the now empty rooms, I noticed traces of the celebration: a stray party hat, a half eaten slice of cake, the faint scent of balloons, and I smiled, knowing that the day would be remembered not for the embarrassment, but for the lessons, growth, and emotional maturity it had cultivated. By turning a potentially humiliating moment into one of reflection, connection, and education, I had not only preserved my own dignity, but also subtly influenced everyone present to consider the power of empathy, patience, and intelligent responses. In that quiet aftermath, I felt a profound clarity. Real strength lies not in reacting impulsively, but in responding with awareness, shaping not only the immediate outcome but also nurturing growth and understanding in others. That evening, I went to bed with a sense of accomplishment far deeper than any superficial triumph. I had turned a moment of chaos into a lifelong lesson, a quiet testament to resilience, composure, and the transformative power of grace under pressure.